Welcome back to Book to Read. We are on episode 6 already, can you believe it? And for this deep dive, we're going to tackle The Book Thief by Markus Zusak.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. The Book Thief is such a powerful and moving story. It's captivated readers all over the world, and I think we'll uncover some of the reasons why as we unpack it today.
Okay, so to quickly set the scene. Historical fiction, World War II Germany.
Heavy stuff.
Right. But there's a bit of a twist. The story is narrated by, wait for it, death.
Yeah, not your typical narrator, that's for sure. But Zusak's death isn't the terrifying Grim Reaper we might expect. He's more like, I don't know, reflective, even a bit world-weary, which I think adds this really unique dimension to the story. What do you think?
I completely agree. It kind of makes you rethink how you see death.
Right.
But before we get too deep into death's perspective, let's talk about our main character, Liesel Meminger, the book thief herself. Zusak throws us right into the action. We meet her on a train, on her way to live with her new foster parents, on Himmel Street. And she's already dealing with the loss of her brother.
It's that immediate encounter with death, with her brother's passing, that really sets the tone for the whole novel. It's like Zusak is saying, this is the world we're in, loss is everywhere. And it's interesting how he chooses to introduce Liesel with this heavy dose of grief right from the start.
Yeah, it's a powerful opening for sure. It definitely pulls you in. It really makes you feel the weight of the time period right away.
Right.
And then, in the midst of all this bleakness, we meet Hans Huberman, Liesel's foster father. And he's this incredible source of warmth and kindness. He even teaches her to read using a stolen gravedigger's manual.
I love that detail. It's so symbolic. Her first act of quote-unquote stealing is picking up that dropped manual. It's like the subtle foreshadowing of her character development and how words and books will become so important for her.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like in that environment, learning to read becomes a rebellious act. Do you think?
Totally. Especially when you think about the context of Nazi Germany, where information, knowledge, everything was so tightly controlled. So for Liesel to learn to read and then to start stealing books, it's this powerful form of resistance. She's taking back some control in a world that's trying to dictate everything.
Absolutely. And speaking of control, we can't forget Rosa Huberman, Liesel's foster mother. She can be pretty harsh, right, with her wash-ins and her sharp tongue.
Oh, yeah. The infamous wooden spoon. But you know what? Underneath that tough exterior, there's this deep well of strength and kindness. She's like a rock, especially when things get tough.
Absolutely. And things definitely get tough when Max Vandenberg enters the picture. A Jewish man who's seeking refuge, hiding him in their basement in Nazi Germany. It's a huge risk.
Oh, the stakes are incredibly high. It puts the entire Huberman family in danger. But Hans feels this moral obligation to protect Max. You know, their connection goes way back to World War I. Max's father and Hans fought together.
And Max's father saved Hans's life.
Right. Their families have this shared history of war and loss. It makes their decision even more complex.
And heartbreaking, too, in a way. I mean, Max's father died in the war, and now his son is forced into hiding, relying on the kindness of the very man his father saved. It's a lot.
Yeah, it really highlights the cyclical nature of war, how it impacts generations.
And speaking of impact, there's that scene in the air raid shelter.
Oh my gosh, yes. When Max is almost discovered.
Talk about tense.
I know. My heart was racing.
Zusak is a master at building tension.
He is.
You know, keeping track of all these storylines and characters can be tricky. That's where I've found Bookspace to be so helpful. Have you heard of it?
I've heard good things.
It's amazing. Think of it like a social network for bookworms. You can organize your whole library, create reading groups, and even share your favorite quotes and thoughts on books like The Book Thief. It's great.
That sounds amazing. I'll have to check it out.
Definitely do. It's called Bookspace. You can find it in your app store.
I will.
Okay, so back to The Book Thief. We were talking about Max and the danger he brings to the Huberman family. But, you know, Liesel develops this really unique bond with him.
It's true. Their shared love of words, the stories they exchange in that basement, it becomes their sanctuary. Amidst all the chaos outside, Zusak really shows how powerful connection can be, even in the face of adversity.
Exactly. It's like even in the darkest of times, those shared moments of understanding, those connections, they can offer solace and even hope.
You're so right.
And then, of course, there's Rudy Steiner.
Rudy.
Liesel's partner in crime. her sacral.
He brings this mischievous energy to the story, but he's also so fiercely loyal. Just a great character.
Yeah, Rudy is great, and he's a good example of how Zusak explores the complexity of childhood during such a dark period. On one hand, you have Rudy's innocence and his admiration for Jesse Owens. Remember when he paints himself black?
Oh, the Jesse Owens incident. Yeah, it's such a powerful moment. It shows how Rudy rejects the Nazi ideology, how he understands that heroism can transcend race.
Absolutely. But then on the other hand, his own family is divided by the war. His father is forced into the Nazi party for economic reasons.
It highlights the moral dilemmas that ordinary people face during that time.
Pretty
So
scary.
tough.
And Rudy's always there in Liesel's life. Their adventures, his unwavering support, and of course his unrequited love for her. He's such a complex character. But let's circle back to the elephant in the room, or rather the Grim Reaper in the room. Death as our narrator. It's such an unusual choice, but Zusak makes it work. And those Death's diary entries that he sprinkles throughout the story, they're so insightful. They give us these glimpses into his perspective, his weary observation of humanity. And then there's this strange fascination he develops for Liesel. It really makes you wonder, why would a being who sees so much death be so captivated by this one girl's story?
That is the question. It's like he sees something in her, something, I don't know, special, something resilient, defiant even, in the face of all this darkness.
Yeah, I get that. It's like death, as Zusak writes him, has seen it all. The best and the worst of humanity. But maybe Liesel represents something more. That glimmer of hope, that refusal to be crushed by circumstance.
Right. And that hope, it manifests in unexpected ways, like her stealing, which for Liesel, it becomes more than just acquiring books.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's her way of fighting back, right? Of taking back some control in a world where everything's been taken from her.
Exactly. Each stolen book is a victory, a symbol of defiance.
And it's not just Liesel who does this. I mean, think about Rudy with his Jesse Owens incident, or Max writing in Mein Kampf. They each find ways to resist.
Yeah, those acts, small as they may seem, they're powerful. Especially given the context, they remind us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can push back. You know? Hold on to hope. Hold on to individuality.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to ignore the loss. That's always present. Liesel experiences it on so many levels. Her family, her friends, even the physical destruction of her neighborhood during the bombing.
The bombing of Himmel Street. Yeah, that's a turning point in the story. It shatters Liesel's world, literally and figuratively. It's I think Zusak is really driving home the point that even those fleeting moments of happiness, those connections we build, they can be ripped away. Just like that.
Yeah, it's the harsh reality of war, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's also, I don't know, it feels like a reality of life in general.
It definitely makes you think about the fragility of life.
It does.
But even amidst that devastation, we see love persisting. You see it with Liesel and her foster parents. Their bond deepens. Her friendship with Rudy flourishes. There's a sense of community that emerges, this collective resilience in the face of adversity.
And it's that resilience, that refusal to be broken, that I think Death finds so fascinating in Liesel. I mean, remember, she's found in the rubble, clutching a book.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this testament to the power of stories, of words, to offer solace and hope, even in the darkest of times.
It's like words themselves become a form of resistance for her, a way to process her grief, to make sense of the chaos, and ultimately to reclaim her story.
You know, it's interesting you say that about reclaiming her story.
Right.
Because Zusak chooses to have Liesel tell her own story.
Right.
In the book, I mean. It gives her the sense of agency, a voice that she wouldn't have had otherwise.
It's a brilliant choice, I think. It lets us, as readers, experience everything through her eyes. The horrors of war, the complexities of human nature. We feel her pain, her loss, but also her strength, her resilience.
Right, so we've talked about the characters, the themes, the historical setting.
Yeah.
But we can't wrap up without circling back to Death. As the narrator, it's just such a bold, unconventional choice, but it works so well.
It really does. It adds this layer of depth and perspective that you just wouldn't get from a typical narrator. Death's observations, his weariness, his fascination with Liesel, it just adds to the richness of the story.
I especially love those Death's diary entries, those little glimpses into his perspective, his understanding of the human condition. He even says at one point that he's haunted by humans.
Oh yeah, what do you make of that?
I don't know. It suggests that even Death, this being who witnesses the end of every life, is still moved by us, by our capacity for love, for compassion, for resilience. It's like we leave a mark, even on him.
Yeah, it's almost as if he's acknowledging that there's something profound about the human spirit, something he can't fully grasp.
It's powerful stuff. And it's one of the reasons I think why this book resonates so deeply with people. The Book Thief makes us think about life and death in a different way. And it challenges us to find hope, even in the face of darkness.
It really does make you think.
But what it means to be human.
Exactly. And The Book Thief does such a good job of exploring that in all its complexity.
Right. And it doesn't shy away from the difficult stuff either. The darkness, the loss.
No, it doesn't, but I think that's part of what makes it so powerful. It's honest. And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's still beauty to be found. There's still love. There's still hope.
Yeah, and it's those little moments, those acts of defiance, those expressions of compassion. That's where we really see what it means to be human.
I think that's a great way to put it. So if you haven't already read The Book Thief, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a book that will stay with you long after you've finished it. Absolutely. And if you have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to Bookspace and join the conversation. It's a great place to connect with other readers and really dive into the deeper meanings of the story.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Book Thief. Until next time, keep reading.